When we're working on specific behaviors like sits, down, stand, those kind of things, there's a few different ways we can get those behaviors. One, we can capture it. So if my dog sits on his own, I can catch and reward that. I'll click and reward him for it. I can also, in addition to capturing, I can lure it. Luring means I'm using food in front of the nose. So I'm going to put food over the nose, lure them into a sitting position or a down position. Then I'm still going to click and reward once they get into position. So that's luring. If you use luring, you need to be very careful about fading out the lure as quickly as you can. So if I'm doing treat over the nose to get a sit, I only want to do that a few times before I take the food out, start using just my hand and start turning that into a hand signal. If I've got the food in front of the nose for too long, what starts to happen is the dog begins to take the food in front of his nose as part of his cue to do something. Okay? So it's not that, a lot of times you hear people say, well, I don't want to use food because then he'll only do it if I have food in my hand. When that happens, it's usually because somebody's used food in front of the nose for too long, didn't fade it out. What we want to do is fade out the lure and then begin to use the food just as a reward. So if I get a sit, I'm going to click and then bring food out as a reward, but I don't want to have it in front of his nose all the time before he does something. Okay? The other option, in addition to capturing and luring, is shaping. Shaping means we're rewarding closer and closer approximations of a behavior until we get the actual behavior. With a sit, we don't normally need to do shaping because most dogs sit pretty readily on their own. However, with retired racing greyhounds, for example, sit is not necessarily a natural behavior. You don't normally see greyhounds who've come off the track sitting on their own. Some do, but it's much less common. So in that case, we might actually use shaping to get a sit because it's not something we are easily able to get all in one fell swoop. So shaping means you're breaking it down into smaller pieces and building into the ultimate behavior that you want. Shaping is often used with more complex behaviors, for example, fetching. Some people want their dogs to retrieve, fetch a toy and bring it back. Some dogs do that very naturally. Labs, golden retrievers, for some of those dogs it comes very naturally and it's easy to do. For other dogs it doesn't come as naturally, or they're really good at going and getting it, but not necessarily bringing it back and giving it up. So with a more complex behavior like that, shaping is often the way to go. We can break it down into the small pieces and gradually put it together into one big behavior. So with sit, for example, we're mostly going to use capturing and luring. Romeo? Hey, buddy. He offered me a sit without me having to ask for it, so I'm just going to click and reward it because he offered it. Here, please. Offered another sit again, so I'm just capturing the sit and reinforcing it. Now, since he's holding the sit, I can click and reward that again. Am I rewarding the same sit? Yes, but what I'm rewarding is duration to the sit because he's holding it without moving. Let's get him up again. As soon as his butt hits the ground, I'm going to click and reward that. Since he's very good at it, I don't need to be quite as quick with catching it. I can really wait a little bit and catch it after he's holding it for a little bit. So as they get better at it, I'm going to actually catch some duration to it and reward that as opposed to just the initial sit. What I really want is for him to hold the sit position rather than plopping down and jumping, standing right back up again.